There are moments in life when time folds in on itself, when the past reaches through the years and taps you on the shoulder as if to say, "Remember me, remember us, remember what we left unfinished." And this is one of those moments. You're going about your day, your mind occupied with the usual rhythm of responsibilities and distractions, when suddenly your phone lights up with a name you haven't seen in years, a name that doesn't belong to the person you once loved, but to someone who was there, someone who witnessed it all, a friend of that younger love who once held your entire world in their hands. The message is brief at first, almost apologetic, asking if you have a moment to talk, if you're open to hearing something they've been carrying for a long time. And there's a weight in those words that you can feel even through the screen, a gravity that tells you this isn't about reminiscing or catching up or casual nostalgia. This is something else entirely. Your heart begins to beat a little faster, not from fear exactly, but from a recognition that some doors you thought were closed forever are suddenly creaking open again, and you're not sure if you're ready to walk through them or if you ever really left them behind in the first place. The friend's words are careful, measured, as if they rehearsed this conversation 1,000 times in their mind. Try to find the right way to say what needs to be said without causing harm, without reopening wounds that might have finally scarred over. They tell you that they thought about reaching out for years, that they've debated whether this information belongs to you or whether some secrets are better left buried in the garden of what once was. But something recently convinced them that you deserve to know, that the universe or fate or whatever force guides these things has been nudging them to finally speak, to finally release what they've been holding on to on behalf of someone who couldn't or wouldn't say it themselves. And then comes a phrase that stops your breath. It involves you. It's always involved you. Suddenly your present moment feels less solid, less certain, because you realize that while you've been building your life, moving through your days, healing from old heartbreaks and creating new stories, there's been a parallel truth existing somewhere else, a truth that someone else has been living with, thinking about, carrying like a secret flame that never quite went out. You feel yourself transported back to who you were then, to that younger version of yourself who loved so openly, so completely, before life taught you to guard your heart more carefully. You remember the face, the laugh, the way that person made you feel seen in a way that's hard to find, the way they fit into your world like they were always meant to be there, and then the way they left, or the way it ended, or the way it simply faded into the category of beautiful things that weren't meant to last. But now this friend is telling you there's more to the story, that there's a chapter you never read, a truth that was kept from you, and your soul knows instinctively that once you hear the secret, once you know what was really happening beneath the surface of those younger days, nothing will quite be the same again. As you stare at the screen, as you process the magnitude of what this friend is offering to reveal, you become acutely aware of all the spaces in your memory where words should have been but weren't, where conversations ended before they reached their true conclusion, where feelings were felt but never fully expressed because fear or timing or circumstance built walls between vulnerable hearts. You think about all the moments with your younger love when you sensed something beneath the surface, something unspoken swimming in the silence between you, times when their eyes held more than their mouth was willing to release, times when you felt them pulling back even as you reached forward, and you wonder now if what you're about to learn will finally explain those mysteries that have lived as quiet questions in the back of your mind for all these years. The friend begins to share context, painting a picture of your younger love during that time, revealing struggles you didn't know about, fears that were never confessed, internal battles that were being fought while you thought everything was simple or straightforward or exactly as it appeared on the surface. They tell you about conversations they had with your younger love late at night, conversations where your name was spoken with tenderness that ached, where tears were shed over what could be, or what should be, or what felt impossible despite how much it was wanted. And you realize that while you were experiencing your own version of that relationship, your own hopes and disappointments and confusions, there was an entirely separate experience happening simultaneously, a private emotional landscape that you were never invited into, not because you weren't trusted, but because sometimes people hide their deepest truths even from those they love most, especially from those they love most, because vulnerability feels like standing naked in a storm and hoping the lightning strikes somewhere else. This friend shares how your younger love would talk about you, about the little things you did that meant more than you probably realized, about the way you laughed at something they said, and how that sound became a melody they'd replay in quiet moments, about how they saw a future with you that felt both thrilling and terrifying, Because when you love someone that deeply at a young age, before you fully know yourself, it can feel like you're being asked to make promises your soul isn't yet equipped to keep. They explain how your younger love wrestled with timing, with readiness, with fears of not being enough or not being ready enough or somehow failing you if they try to build something permanent before they built themselves. And you begin to understand that maybe what you experienced as rejection or distance or the ending of something beautiful wasn't about you at all, wasn't about you not being enough or not being the right person, but about someone drowning in their own doubts and doing what hurt people often do, which is creating distance to protect both themselves and the ones they love from the chaos they feel inside. The friend pauses, letting the weight of these revelations settle, letting you absorb that your younger love's interior world was far more complex than the simple story you've been telling yourself all these years. And then they say the words that make your chest tighten. But there's something specific they wanted you to know, something they made me promise to tell you if the right moment ever came. And here it is, the truth that's been waiting patiently in the shadows of years gone by. The confession that was spoken once in vulnerability and trust to a friend who has carried it like a sacred covenant until this exact moment when the stars aligned and the universe whispered that the time had finally come. The friend takes a breath. Even through text you can feel them gathering courage, and then they release it. Your younger love never fell out of love with you, never stopped thinking about you, never truly moved on in a way that closure is supposed to happen. And on a specific night, maybe after too much wine, or maybe in a moment of raw honesty that only comes when the soul can no longer contain what it's been holding, they confess that you were the one, that you were the standard against, which everyone else would be measured and found wanting. That letting you go or pushing you away or whatever happened between you was the biggest mistake of their life, and they've been living with that regret like a stone in their chest ever since. The friend shares more, details that make this real, that remove any possibility of misinterpretation or romanticized memory. They tell you about how your younger love would see something beautiful, a sunset or a song or a moment of unexpected grace. And their first instinct was still to want to share it with you, to reach for a phone and start typing your name before remembering that you're not part of their daily world anymore, that you become a memory instead of a presence. They reveal how your younger love has compared every relationship since to what you had, and nothing has ever felt quite right. Nothing has ever had that same inexplicable magic, that same sense of coming home to someone who understood you in a language beyond words. They tell you about the reasons your younger love pulled away back then, about insecurities that seemed insurmountable at the time, but that maturity has revealed to be the very human fears that we all wrestle with when we're young and don't yet trust ourselves to hold precious things without breaking them. But here's what pierces deepest. Your younger love wanted you to know that you weren't wrong about what you felt, that the connection was real, that those moments of intimacy and understanding and feeling like you'd found your person weren't illusions or youthful naivety, or the kind of thing you dismiss as you get older and supposedly wiser. You were right. What you had was rare. What you had mattered. And they spent years wishing they'd been brave enough to fight for it, to work through whatever obstacles seemed so overwhelming back then, to choose love even when it felt scary or inconvenient, or like it required a version of themselves they hadn't yet grown into. The friend says that your younger love wanted you to know that you deserved better than the ending you got, that you deserved honesty and courage, and someone who was ready to meet you where you were, and the guilt of not being that person has been a companion they've carried into every day since. And now you're sitting with this information, the secret that reframes everything you thought you knew about that chapter of your life, and you're feeling emotions you can't quite name because they're too complex, too layered, too much about past and present colliding in ways that make you question what's possible and what's already been decided by time and distance and the lives you both built in the years between then and now. So here you are, standing at a crossroads that materialize out of nowhere, holding a truth that feels both like a gift and a burden, both like vindication and complication. And the question that pulses through your veins is simple yet impossibly complex. What do you do with this? Do you reach out to your younger love after all this time, breaking years of silence to say, I know, I heard, I feel something too, risking the vulnerability of admitting that maybe you also never fully moved on, that maybe there's still a tender place in your heart that bears their name? Or do you honor the life you've built, the healing you've done, the way you've learned to be whole without them, and let the secret remain a beautiful closure, a confirmation that what you had was real, but also firmly in the past where it belongs? The universe doesn't send messages like this randomly. doesn't orchestrate these revelations without purpose, and you sense that this moment is asking something of you, requiring a choice that will ripple out into your future in ways you can't yet see. You think about your life as it is now, about where you are emotionally, spiritually, about whether there's space for something this big, this potentially transformative, or whether you're in a different chapter that doesn't include looking backward. You think about your younger love, about who they are now versus who they were then, about whether people really change, or whether the same patterns that broke you apart would emerge again if you try to rebuild what was lost. You think about timing, about how the universe works, about whether some connections are meant to be rekindled when both people have grown enough to handle what they couldn't before, or whether some loves are meant to remain beautiful memories that taught us what we needed to learn, but were never meant to go the distance. Your heart is speaking to you now. Beneath all the rational considerations, beneath all the practical questions, there's a feeling, an instinct, a knowing that's trying to communicate something essential. Maybe it's telling you that this revelation is your second chance, your invitation to rewrite a story that ended too soon, your opportunity to see if the magic was real and sustainable or just the sweet intensity of youth that can't survive in the complexity of adult life. Or maybe your heart is telling you that this secret is actually a form of closure, a way of understanding the past, so you can finally, truly release it and move forward without the nagging questions that have kept a small part of you tethered to what was. Either way, something inside you is shifting, awakening, reconsidering possibilities you thought were no longer on the table, and that feeling itself is information, a signal from your deepest self about what matters and what's still alive within you. The friend who revealed all this is watching, waiting, ready to facilitate a reconnection if that's what you choose, or ready to simply let you sit with this information and decide in your own time what it means and what you want to do about it. They've given you the gift of truth, and now the power is in your hands. The choice is yours to make, and whatever you decide will be right, because it will come from the only authority that really matters when it comes to matters of the heart, which is your own inner wisdom, your own sense of what serves your highest good and your deepest happiness. This revelation, this secret that's been unveiled, is not the ending of something but the beginning, the opening of a door that leads to a path you couldn't see before, and whether you walk through that door or choose a different direction entirely. The important thing is that you now have information that liberates you from the false narratives you might have been carrying, the stories about not being enough or being too much or somehow failing at a love that mattered. You can release those stories now because you know the truth. And the truth is that you were loved more deeply than you realized, that your presence in someone's life created an imprint that time hasn't erased. And that's powerful knowledge to carry forward regardless of what you choose to do with it. Some people go their whole lives wondering if they mattered to the people they loved, wondering if what they felt was mutual or if they were alone in their intensity. And you don't have to wonder anymore because the answer has arrived. Carried across time by a friend who understood the importance of truth even when it's complicated. But there's something else here, something humming beneath the surface of this conversation, something the friend has been building toward, and you can sense in the way their messages have unfolded, in the strategic reveal of information that feels like it's leading somewhere beyond simple disclosure of past feelings. They mention that your younger love has been going through something recently, some kind of transformation, or awakening or reckoning with their own life choices, and that this moment of revelation is connected to that larger process in ways that aren't fully clear yet. They hint that your younger love is at their own crossroads, making their own big decisions about what they want their future to look like and who they want in it. And suddenly, this isn't just about the past anymore. This is about now, about present tense possibilities, about doors that might be opening in real time rather than just in memory. The friend becomes a bit mysterious then, saying there are things they can't fully share yet. Things that your younger love needs to tell you themselves if you're open to hearing them. Things that would explain not just what was, but what could be. They tell you that your younger love doesn't know they've reached out, that this was done without explicit permission. Because sometimes the universe works through friends and intermediaries who can see what the main players are too scared or stubborn to see. They say that if you're curious, if any part of you wants to know more, wants to understand what's happening right now in your younger love's life and how it connects to you, there's a way forward. There's a conversation that's possible. There's a reunion that's waiting to happen if you're brave enough to say yes to it. And just as you're processing all of this, just as you're trying to decide what your next move should be, the friend drops one final piece of information that makes everything suddenly urgent and immediate. There's something your younger love is about to do, a decision they're making this week, and it involves you more directly than you might imagine, but I probably already said too much.